Let's go to the fourth level. Now we have the student have high empowerment. The teacher is much more like a librarian or a resource person. And the student comes in much more with, I want to learn about something. I've decided the content, I've decided the time period, I've decided who's going to be served by this, and I really want to gain mastery. So if I was in that role, and I have been many times with students who come into me with something like this, then I'll use what I call the KWL. K stands for the word know, K-N-O-W, not N-O. And then W stands for what do I want to know, and the L stands for, at the end, what did I learn. Very simple model, KWL. So then I really work with the student to try to understand, okay, what does the student already know about this topic? What do they wonder about and want to know more of? And then at the end, we're going to do an assessment of what did they learn that stretched them. Here I borrow ideas from Perkins, the gentleman at Harvard, and he says maybe what we could use as a curriculum guide is have an introductory performance where at the very beginning a student tells an audience, this is what I already know at the beginning of my learning, and they spell it all out either in writing or orally. And then meeting periodically with a mentor, there's a guided inquiry and performance along the way. So periodically, maybe every 2 weeks, this is what I know now. I have decided to go this direction, and then a mentor could guide them in new directions. And then the third one is, at the end, a culminating performance where they're literally serving others in very meaningful, authentic ways, something that will make a difference to a human being other than yourself. So I use the example here of, imagine if you had a 9th grader who was very concerned about the peer pressure about drinking alcohol. They're too young to drink, and yet their peers are drinking a lot, and they're sneaking around away from their parents. They might see their parents drinking. They might see their parents drinking too much. They might see their parents going to 12-step meetings and try not to have alcohol be part of their lives. But the point is that they're struggling with the peer pressure, and they wonder, why is it that the hells attack and make this so alluring? And a teacher might say, okay, let's see how we can make this into a really meaningful, spiritual, religious, doctrinal kind of a learning, as well as a practical one, as well as a service one. So the teacher might be a guide to help a student go from just wondering and worrying about this to, okay, let's just really look at the whole issue of alcoholism. And then maybe a minister might get involved and say, well, what are the steps of regeneration? How do you go from self-compulsion to try not to go towards something alluring, to really try to say, no, I'm not going to do something, and then asking the Lord for the strength to say no. There's a real wonderful number in TCR about the steps of even what a teenager can deal with, about how do you say no to things, how does that give you strength, and then how do you resist the temptation later on. And then also why. What does alcohol do to our brains? Well, it attacks our understanding. It makes it so that we can't think clearly, and we might actually be uncharitable to others. We might actually hurt other people by driving while we're drunk, by being promiscuous while we're drunk. There's a lot of dangers that the hells can really enter and get you to do things that are really against your moral code while you're under the influence of alcohol. This is a really important lesson for a young person to really be guided in learning about. So in this example, if a student is working at the mastery level, hopefully they will learn about this at both a practical, a health level, psychological, as well as a spiritual level. And then also really serving others. Maybe they'll create a curriculum for 5th to 8th graders, kids just a little younger than they are, about the dangers of alcohol and why it's so alluring, what happens when you drink too much, how can you resist it, what do the writings say about how we can resist the temptation even if our peers are really pulling us in. And then at the end, you don't really pass a test. What you do is you gather feedback from parents and from younger kids and mentors about how did it go and what could you do better next time if you were to do another guided inquiry. So you've just seen 4 examples of how you could have a religion curriculum, but the level of student empowerment is quite different. The role of the teacher is quite different. Over here, the teacher decides just about everything. And over here, the teacher is more like a librarian or a resource person.